Good morning, everyone. I am Hai Vong, and I work in DISA Emerging Technology Directorate, who would like to welcome you to today's technical exchange meeting. Qflow Systems will present its QAction document management and workflow automation platform in today's session. I need to go over some administrative items before we get started. First, remute your DoD365 Microsoft Teams sessions. Second, this session being recorded to allow future group to present the capability by members of DISA and DoD community. Third, this is a public forum. No proprietary sensitive information should be shared in the session. Fourth, we encourage questions during the session, so please use the raise hand function in the Teams menu to let presenter when you have a question. You can also enter your question in the chat area at any time during the presentation, and the question will be addressed in the order they received. I must provide a following disclaimer. This technical exchange meeting does not infer any intention by this or Department of Defense to enter into acquisition, contract purchase, or endorsement of the presented capability. This session is purely for informational purposes only. We do not control how session participants will perceive the convey content. Access into the technical exchange video, slide deck, and other TEM artifacts will be made available through the public TEM website. A link to download today's TEM session slide deck will also be made available in the chat area. So with all that said, let us commence with the presentation. So over to Qflow Systems for presenting.
Thank you very much. We're glad that we can be here with everyone this morning. My name is Dr. Andrew Hudson, and I'd like my team to introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tim Kaler. I'm the president and CEO of Qflow.
Morning, I'm Greg Romano. I am the VP of Engineering.
And I'm Emily Nava. I'm head of marketing over at Qflow Systems.
Thank you all so much for being with us today. We'd love to start with a little bit of background about who we are and what we do. Tim.
Thanks, Dr. Hudson. So we're Qflow, and we're a small business. We've been supporting the U.S. federal government and large healthcare organizations for over 25 years, mission critical solutions. As I mentioned, we build and implement the out-of-the-box platform called QAction, which is a document records and workflow automation platform. We're all aware of the extra emphasis today on increasing efficiency, and that's exactly what we do. That's what we've always done. So I want you to think of really three key words on how we do that, and it's standardize, automate, and integrate. So we organize and secure your data in standard approaches to help eliminate duplication and ensure consistency. We also automate your business processes to send the right data to the right people at the right time. We all hear those words a lot, but it's a true, accurate description of what our platform does. And then lastly, we integrate with your other business applications to streamline the flow of data to improve the user experience. So by doing these things, we're dramatically improving efficiency, which leads to greater productivity, faster and effective decision making. So with that, where do we go next? Where can we go from here?
And that's where we challenge ourselves a lot to think about, what does the modern knowledge worker need as we go into the rest of the 21st century? You're going to hear the themes a lot that Tim eloquently shared earlier around standardizing, automating, and integrating. Those are three themes that we really focus in on to provide value. And as we start to think about how those three things fit into modern knowledge work, we started to rack our brains on what that could be. And we had a little bit of fun, and we came up with Bradley Cooper's character from Limitless. This, if you haven't seen the movie, this character has absolute recall, able to get any little bit of information and make incredible decisions at a moment's notice. Now, while there's a bit of fiction on here, we also believe that that's the future that knowledge workers will be able to experience. And if we've all heard of the hype, certainly the renewed interest in generative AI, it starts to have some of these promises that we could get to these new things faster and quickly, like in this movie. But when we did some more research, we started to realize that LLMs aren't quite enough. They demo really well, and they can do some really amazing tasks right out of the box. And as you start to use them more, it becomes immediately apparent that it doesn't necessarily understand you. It doesn't understand your context, your group, your organization, your world. And really the only option that you have is to interact with it more, which would then be giving away your information and your context to third parties, or literally uploading in your content, your documents, your data into these external sources, which for at least our customers is kind of a non-starter. So there was a problem that we got presented, and we'll love to share with you how we intend to solve that as an innovation. And really it comes down to how can we secure your context and make it connected to AI. We see this as the future of generative AI. It is not simply, let's go take a pile of documents and throw it at ChatGPT and hope that the AI finally figures it out over time. We think we can do better. And we think we can do better because of the work that we've done over the past 25 years, where we've looked at custom solutions and we've created software that helps you standardize, automate, and integrate. And because we already have this structure built into the daily work of those folks that are working in our platform, it is uniquely positioned to give context to LLMs. So we want to talk a little bit more about how we do that today with our current product and some of the benefits that we've been able to realize by taking this approach today before we've introduced an LLM. When folks typically come to us, they're asking questions around, I can't figure out where things are. Everyone's doing it differently. Even if it's the same process, depending on the sub-agency or the group, everyone has their own spin. And so when you're trying to combine these things or create streamlines, you just hit roadblocks. And so they want some way that we can collect that information in a consistent way, follow an SOP, make sure that the system helps and gives feedback and then reinforces that SOP. So then we can have automated process rather than a bunch of manual interventions and steps. And so this is the process that folks typically go through is they'll say, hey, we have this thing that we're doing. We just want to make sure we're capturing it consistently. Then they go into, well, hey, since we're capturing it consistently, I bet you we can automate some of these steps. Well, yeah, you can. Well, hey, now that we're automating these steps, we got these other business applications that we need to keep up to date along with this process. And Tim's over here doing that manually. Can we just take that off of his plate so it'll right there and pull the current information? Well, sure, we can connect to those data sources. And so these start to come together in this big orchestration, and that's where the efficiencies really start to get realized. And Tim is going to share with you now some of the real measurable benefits of that.
Yeah, as we mentioned, these are mission critical solutions, and they're in place that's supporting and orchestrating a tremendous amount of processes for our customers. So if we go around here, there is a USDA, a legal review workflow where they request legal services, and it's managing $4.8 billion in litigation across the department. Separately at USDA, there is a loan and grant award process at rural development. This system is organizing, securing, automating, integrating this entire process, and they're obligating $30 billion in loans annually that's serving 46 million US residents in rural areas. And then here at DISA, there is a contract management implemented configuration of this platform where they are managing contracts supporting annual DISA obligations of $6 billion. So lastly, 870,000 workflows executed in the last year. This is one platform enabling many, many different experiences. So Greg is going to show you one in a minute, but we already mentioned a few. Beyond that, you know, from loan processing to contract lifecycle management to correspondence management to personnel security. Think about any business process that you may deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's one application, but depending on where you are in that organization, you're going to get a different experience to provide that capability. So what Greg is getting ready.
Oh, we lost audio with Tim. He might have done an elbow mute.
Sorry about that. Accidentally hit the mute with my elbow. So what Greg is getting ready to show is a justification and approval process that is supporting the DISA contract process.
That's exactly right, Tim. So the thing we'll highlight here as we walk through our product is you'll start to see, and we'll introduce you to some views that can be catered based on access and workload, so that depending on who's logging in, they get a completely different experience on a single platform. It makes it very, very flexible and extensible. So what we're showing you right now, and again, we're going to go back to those themes on standardizing, automating, integrating. We're going to show that we have a PDF here that needs to be entered into our system, and we have an Adobe integration that allows us to send that directly into the system. Once it goes into the system, you'll be able to see that there are enforced classifications to ensure that when this is filled out, it's filled out the same way each time. And you'll notice as Greg types in this field, it offers some suggestions. These are already existing values to ensure that you're not duplicating or writing it a little bit differently, so that you can click on it, make sure it's the same thing, and even if you had to, go look up something if you weren't quite sure what was there. So once you've done that, you're ready to add the document and submit. The system then accepts it, and it starts a workflow. But before we go too far into the workflows, let us get our bearings about what we're seeing here. On the left side, you'll navigate to what we call different views. These are shared searches, so you're able to present all the data within the system in specific ways. You can share it with others. You can change how it's being viewed. You can download it as a report if you need to, or even as a PDF. Because you're able to create this, what it allows you to do is say, if I have permission to the information, I can then present it in a way that's best for me, or best for my team, or best for my organization, or best for the process. All of that can be catered on the left-hand side, and you can choose who can see which views that you might make. So it doesn't get too cluttered, and you can be focused in on what you need to see. So with that, we wanted to go show you how our administration goes around organizing the classifications, as well as, click the wrong button, my apologies. Show you the structure we have for filling out each of these items, and then show all of the capability that you have that can be customized to your work process. You can index the fields. You can choose the document types that are assigned. You can set robust security standards. And here you can get very granular on what can be accessed and by whom. This is built in lockstep with our customers because of the needs for granular security. All of this can be catered and centrally managed, which makes it really easy to just follow the process. And when you have groups like we can see here, individuals that move around, which happens all the time to different tours of duty, you can add them directly into the appropriate group, and then that person or that user is able to inherit the permissions of that group without coming in and making any system modifications. It creates that consistency, that predictability, and enforces that SOP. So from here, we're going to hop over back to our inbox, and we're going to see that we have a task that's been created. There's some metadata that's come along with that, and you'll notice it's the same metadata that we filled out on that document so that we aren't having to repeat information. We're able to reuse it throughout the system. And then we're able to fill out additional information as we need to so that we can forward this particular item for review. Great question, Lewis. The document was loaded into the system with the integration from Adobe Acrobat, where it sends it directly up into this web-based app. It's not the only way to send documents in. You can upload them manually. You can drag and drop them into the interface. There's several options there. Great question. All right, now that we can see the different items within the task, we can see our document is attached. We can even see the workflow that's associated. So we are able to tell what's next in the process. Now, how does this thing run? Well, let us show you how we're able to create some robust workflows using our BPMN editor, Business Process Management Notation. Anybody here that's done performance and process improvement, you've come across a flowchart like this. Swim lanes are familiar, decision points, actions, starts. We wanted to use this because not only is this the visual for the workflow, but it actually works. So as you drag and drop and configure the workflow, this becomes codified. You don't have to send this visual off to a developer and have it custom coded. It's all within the interface, which makes it really easy and fast to communicate new processes when you have to verify an SOP, but also extremely quick to iterate, to improve, to modify, and then to just inspect to make sure that it's following the expected SOP. Thanks for sharing that, Greg. So now what we want to do is hop in and look at a completed task and how it moves on to the next person. So to do that, we're going to log out of here and we're going to hop into our supervisor, Clark. He's a super guy. Clark's been working with the team for a long time. He just is leaps and bounds above everyone else. He's a great guy. So you can see here that there's a new task for Clark to complete. He has the same information that's been brought in. He's able to inspect, to review, but notice his view of what there is to do next is different. Great question. We'll come back to that high on if multiple people and team members can work on the same action. That's something Greg can speak to for sure. So while we have this, and yes, it is possible, just to share it quickly, reviewing the complete workflow, and we showed how we can see that. And we want to also view the full contracting process. Notice how everything is a little bit different because this is what the user needs to see. So you're seeing the right information at the right time. Let's go ahead and click on that pre-solicitation. And this is part of the contract award. And this is where you can set these stages and ensure that you have the right documents as part of your contracting process in one place. So it really helps centralize what your process is doing in a way that's visually approachable. So it's very, very powerful in how it works today. And then finally, if we didn't share it too directly before, the connecting to data sources to validate. So Tim and Greg, you can talk to a little bit about this. It's not in our demo environment, but the different systems that we're able to connect to with our system today and how that works with workflows like this.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, so typically what we would do for systems like this, there's a few different ways. We have a public API that is based off of standards, the open API standard. So information can be pushed to us through an open standard REST API. We also have a variety of tools that are able to pull information from database sources. So we can create jobs that run on a regular basis to pull in data from regular data sources. And also we have a vast amount of experience with integrating with other systems through REST API and SOAP API integrations.
So some name drops that we can put in there is we've integrated with data warehouses for data to make sure that we can connect to it. Salesforce we've integrated with on a process. Internal applications. I never seem to remember them. I'm sure RUS is one of those. Tim, you probably have them on the tip of your tongue.
Well, sure. So at DISA, for example, there's storefront. The DAP storefront is a ServiceNow, and to add on to the question about how do documents get in the system, well, that's one way also. Contract packages are submitted through the storefront. They're automatically added and triggering workflows within QAction.
Lots of options to help orchestrate all the different data and processes. Excellent. Well, that's the end of our brief demo. We wanted to then pull you back in, if we could, to those themes that we talked about earlier around standardizing, automating, and integrating. And what you all got to see were things like enforced data. What we didn't show was automated retention schedules. We thought that was a little bit out there. But if you have records that need to follow a schedule based on NARA standards, we built that module in our product to follow NARA standards. And there's lots of options that we'd love to talk with you about after our presentation today if you have some record retention possibilities or opportunities. And we talked about automating that process and showing our workflow. We talked about this being a shared service, so it's not a single sub-agency use. It's used not only across agency, but across different agencies. And then it's also tailored and expandable. But all of that is really the technical nuts and bolts. And one of the things that I remind myself on frequently, and I look at this is the first coin I received in federal service for customer service. And that's really something that our team does really well. And we found that the best adoption of these new standards and automation is when you have someone you can call, a real person. When software is over the fence and said, well, you have to figure it out, or it's given to someone internally to own, but maybe they're not the most technical. We've all been there. I've had that happen to me before. And when you have someone like this, we integrate very, very well with technology offices to ensure that we're a great partner and almost an augmentation of their team. So we can take in those tickets, be super responsive, but then also help out even farther around trainings, around helping them come up with solutions. And all of those are part of our renewed maintenance as we package not only the licensing, but support for the product. And that's a real differentiator for us and something where we consistently get exceptional ratings on. We're very, very proud of that. So we've talked to you about what we do today. We've talked to you about a problem and how we'd want to solve it. I'm sure everyone is sitting on their edge of their seat of how are you going to tie this back to LLMs? Well, don't worry. That's why we're all here. Get ready to see. Well, but wait, I got to share a concept. Okay. So if anybody here is technical, you probably have seen the thing on the left at least once over the past 40 years. It's called an entity relationship diagram, and it's how folks communicate how data is organized within a database. You can see there's a contract and there's a company and there's specific fields and what their purposes are. And then there's a constrained connection. That's how it works. It's called a foreign key. These systems are traditionally very, very good at transactions, but they're not really good at finding similarity or really understanding knowledge. And as a result, it's not great for some of these new LLMs, generative AI, because there's an enormous amount of assumptions that have to go along with it that you can start to extract, but it can be done better. And through our research, we started to look at something called graph databases, or specifically a knowledge graph. And this has been around the past decade or so, really became popular with some modern technologies. And what this does is takes a different approach that allows for much more flexibility on how you relate to different pieces of information. And it doesn't limit you to a single relationship. Here, this is the equivalency of what you're seeing on the left and to the right. A contract relates to a company. And you can say it as it's a sentence, a contract relates to a company, because that's important, especially if you're using large language models with semantic inference. It needs to understand how these things really relate. What's more is you can have more than one type of relationship or improve the quality of that relationship. So perhaps the contract not only relates to the company, but perhaps the contract funds the company. Small difference could have a meaningful impact on how your LLM returns a response. And so the question became for us, how the heck can we make this super easy for our end users? If you're on the edge of your seats right now saying, I don't know what the heck Dr. Hudson just said, a knowledge graph, an ERD, I don't understand this, and I'm in tech. And how the heck am I going to get my staff to understand how to put this all together? Well, fear not. We knew that this was hard, and we knew we wanted to do something about it. So the why, we're building in Project Orca. That's our solution, and we're going to show you a few screens today. It's in an alpha state right now, and this is staged to release in 2026. But we know that organizing context is hard. We know that. That's what we've been doing for 25 years. That's what QAction does today. It makes organizing context easier. We know we can do that. But QAction is built off of those traditional ERDs. But we also know, because of the customers that we work with, that context has to be private. We have authorities to operate, and we actually deploy our software inside of the agencies because the type of information that we work with is very protected. Well, that's not going onto the public cloud. That's going to go with an authority to operate inside of specific resources. But now we have a paradox. Generative AI needs context. And really our options right now are to send that up to these third parties. Well, that's not an option. So then I can't use Gen AI. And we were presented with these problems, and we came up with a solution. First, we're going to help you build your knowledge graph the right way. It's going to be inside a familiar user experience so that you don't have to retrain your staff. Once they've learned to use QAction, they can easily hop back over into using Orca, or what we'll eventually call Qflow. Name pending. The other thing that's important to realize is as you build these knowledge graphs, you need to be able to connect it up to an LLM. But a locally hosted LLM, and you're able to choose which model that you want to apply, that's really important. We want to empower our customers to be able to do this and run their LLMs locally to realize the productivity benefits of a large language model. We're also very encouraged in recent developments around LLMs that they are improved in their efficacy with less resources. And if you combine that with optimized context, like a knowledge graph, now you have something very, very powerful that doesn't break the bank. We also want to continue centralized data tagging. We showed you how we do some of that today in QAction. We're going to carry that forward in this next version, and really want to make sure that every benefit that you get in QAction today is going to persist. That's what the QAction Plus is. You can kind of think of it, Project Orca, like QAction Plus. Everything you get today, plus the stuff above. And we'd love to share some of the initial screens that we built today and talk through them. if you're interested. So here you can see that we modernized the interface, but also kept things incredibly familiar. The left-hand navigation still persists. You're still able to create views. We've added some pre-attentive attributes around iconography and colors to really spruce up the visual. We are able to do multiple types of views. Here you're doing a table view and a list view, which we already have in the product today. This will extend to Kanbans and calendars and different data layouts so that you can really cater your data experience. We've also really improved our what we're calling our object drawer. You're going to still be able to have your consistency around data tagging. You're also going to be able to create relationships to those different objects. And you're going to be able to take robust notes in the system while still able to upload files like you did before. So you don't have to choose, well, I have to write a file and then send it in. Well, no, you could write it here and attach context files. All of this is really robust and helps with productivity. The next thing that we did is we extended what our capabilities are. So you can see here, I'm going through the different tabs of uploading the files, writing comments, seeing that timeline for traceability and auditability. And then you can also see this local image of a knowledge graph. You're able to see and interact with this in a way that you couldn't before. And you'll know that you are building out your knowledge individually as well as across your team through the workspace. And you'll start to see how that knowledge is going to grow across the entire workspace. So that new connections, new inferences, new indirect relationships, you'll be able to interrogate effectively using the LLM. This is really cutting edge stuff, and we are very excited to bring it to our customers. So with that, if you'd love to join us on QAction today, it's something you don't have to, and Tim can talk a little bit more about this. This is something that's accessible to you. It isn't a new software that has to be implemented. You can have it right now. And all the work that you're able to do on the system today will be transferable directly over to Project Orca and coming in June 2026. Tim, do you have some more you'd like to share?
Sure, thanks. So if you're familiar with the DoD IT environment, you're aware of the level of effort to to implement and secure and all the documentation that's needed to hit all the RMF requirements to get an authority to operate. So we've done this. We have an approved ATO within DISA. There's a tremendous amount of untapped potential that's sitting there that could benefit cross-agency usage. So we really encourage, if you're interested, to reach out. Leverage the investment that's been made already. We know that reusing technology within the government, what a better way to scale investments and increase efficiency. We could onboard new groups as pilots or proof of concept very, very easily using the instance that's already in place.
That's a great ad, Tim. With that, we'd love to open the floor to additional questions and see how we can help.
I did want to make sure that we answered Hai's question about multiple team members working on the same plan simultaneously.
Yeah, Greg's probably the best one to talk about that.
Yeah, yep. I certainly can speak to that. I was just getting my screen put up here again. So as we look at this workflow here, we can see that we have these different swim lanes, and swim lanes effectively relate to a group of people who can work a particular task. So if we look at this legal review task, you'll notice that we have a swim lane that's called legal. And this maps to a group or an organization within the organization structure that's within the system. So you can see that we have this legal group, and there are two users within this legal group. There's a Clark Kent and a Greg Romano. So when this task gets, We can't close this out. So when this complete submission task is completed and we choose the forward to review path, a task gets started for legal review, and it ends up in the inbox of both Clark Kent and Greg Romano because they are members of the legal swim lane. They're both going to see them. When one of those users selects that task to work, it tags that particular user onto that task and removes it from the inbox of the other user. I think
Tim, can you talk a little bit? I'm sorry, Greg, can you talk a little bit too about checking in and checking out and simultaneous viewing of data? I think that could be part of this too, Hi, correct me if I'm wrong, where we're simultaneously looking at the same JNA DIM 102 on two different devices. One is checked in, perhaps one is not. How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody can see data simultaneously. You know, read-only access is certainly not a problem by dozens or hundreds of users simultaneously. No issue there at all. Within a given document, if documents need to be modified, there is a checkout capability which will put an exclusive lock on that file so that no one else can make changes to it while that particular person is making changes to it, and then they can check in a new version once they're done. So that's the exclusive lock capability within a document. As far as changes to data goes, the data can be changed depending on permissions. Again, everything has an access control list, which we saw earlier, which controls who can view, who can create new, who can make changes to existing, who can delete, things of that nature. But if you have edit access, multiple people can be making changes to these data elements on the fly as they see fit, and the changes will be reflected when you update your screen. Getting back to the task, so in this particular case, you'll see that this was assigned to the legal group, but right now it's specifically on Greg Romano because I selected the task out of my inbox to work. So at this point, only Greg Romano can work this. You'll notice there are some putback options here. So there's a putback task to the group inbox. So essentially what this is going to do is it's going to remove the Greg Romano name off of the context of the legal group. And so everybody in the legal group can see the task again. So it's put back into the pool, if you will. There's also just return to my inbox, which means that I'm not going to work this right now, but I'm going to hold on to it personally so that I can work it later and make sure that no one else in the legal group works it on my behalf. One other quick comment I want to make is there are a variety of other options that you have up here from the inbox. If we went to administration of a user, there are some task permissions. So you can be a task assigner or a task administrator. What that gives you is visibility into your user's tasks. If you're a department head or a manager of some kind, you can look at the tasks and how they're divvied out and reassign them as necessary. If someone is out on leave or called in sick for the day, you can look at their work and reassign them back to the pool or perhaps to another individual within the group. So all of those capabilities are here. It's kind of outside of what we wanted to show in the demo, but there's a lot of robust work management within the platform.
That was a great answer, Greg. Nava, do you have another question?
Yes, we have a question from Lewis, and he's asking, are there file size limitations?
Another way to ask is, can we configure different file size limits?
The short answer is yes, you can configure file size limits. By default, it's 100 megabytes is the limit, but that can be configured on a per deployment basis based on the needs and the requirements and compliance of the customer.
Mm-hmm. I think the one thing that comes up when you have a big file size limit and why we try to keep it minimized and why we have the default is the lag. Depending on your connection, if you need to get that file, download it, render it like a large PDF, that can impact the user experience. So typically there's a conversation to be had about that particular workflow of what you're trying to accomplish so we can recommend the best approach. Does that help, Lewis?
Yes, that does help. Now I didn't see graphics in your example. So if the file had graphics, how does your technology negotiate those graphics?
Do you mean like if there's an Excel file with a chart,
Right.
or do you mean just a PDF rendering?
Charts, flow charts, um, any kind of graphics that might be part of a document that you would
Mhm.
put into your system.
So
How does your system navigate that?
yeah, absolutely. Right now, we render PDFs and image files, correct?
Mhm.
If it is another file type, we typically open that up in the native application for that file type. And that's in this version that we have today. As we move towards the next version in the future, we're going to have more rendering capabilities within the browser. Do you want to see a PDF open and what that looks like?
Sure.
Cool. I don't know how many graphics are on it today, but
Well, so with the PDF right now, it's going to open up just like this, right? So this is within the browser view of the PDF, and this is the example that we uploaded today.
thanks, Greg.
Okay, so
Uh,
if there was a chart, um, would it be able to understand the chart if there was a chart embedded on this?
On the current software today, it doesn't have that intelligence built in to interpret a chart. As we bring in LLMs into the next version that's coming up next year, we're going to have more and more capabilities like that.
Good copy.
Any other questions? If not, we can. I don't want to be the person holding anybody up for lunch.
Let's pull up the last slide with our contact information before we head out.
Sounds great.
All right, thank you so much for the presentation and sharing the contact information slide to the screen. So yeah, I think we have another question just pop up in the chat area. See if you can address that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so Angela asked, what DISA business application does QAction providing currently?
What this is named inside DISA is the EDMS, Electronic Document Management System, and that is interfacing with the DApps. I forget what DApps stands for, but that's the ServiceNow storefront. And it also interacts with the EDA system. And essentially it is used as the entire contract management lifecycle application for PSD, the Procurement Services Directorate.
Does that answer your question, Angela?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Tim.
Mhm.
Good to see you again. I don't know if you remember me from Ditco, long time ago, but yeah, familiar with EDMS for sure.
Long time no see.
Right.
We got a fan in the audience.
Right. No, yep, that answers my question. I just wondered if you guys had gone beyond the contracting application. So thanks.
Yeah, that's one reason we mentioned that there's a tremendous amount of untapped potential, and depending on your experience of the system, you may only know it as a contract management application, but it could be used across agency for any potential business purpose you have to organize and automate data.
Yeah, Tim, that was something that you were sharing with me the other day, is that there's a whole cohort of folks over at USDA that don't realize how often they interface with the system, even because it orchestrates what they're doing behind the scenes from the line of business application that they interact with every day. So it's everywhere from the only thing you look at and the number one productivity thing that you're using, all the way to an orchestration behind the scenes that just makes things great, and you're not even sure it's there. And that's the best technology, the one we don't even know is there, right?
Exactly.
Any other questions we can help with? Well, please don't hesitate to reach out. We always love chatting with folks, answering questions, learning about what you're trying to accomplish. We are very aligned with DITCO's and DISA's mission, as well as USDA, and we are looking to see how we can help bring more efficiency to those agencies as well as new ones.
All right, thank you, sir. At this time, I do not see there any other question from the audience. So I would like to take this time to conclude the TEM session. If anyone interested in pursuing this capability, company contact information was shared on screen a couple minutes ago. If you don't feel comfortable to contact the company directly, you can also contact my organization, DISA Emerging Technology Directorate. We can help you to get in touch with the company. So what I said, I would like to thank QFlow Systems for presenting their solution today, and would like to thank everyone for your time participating in today's TEM session. And I wish you all a wonderful day. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all. Thanks for your time.